Hello everybody, my name's James, and for the benefit of those listening back to the audio, you're listening to Ask James, my regular YouTube live stream, where I welcome questions from the YouTube community on anything football related. To timestamp this, it's just gone past 12:35 PM UK time on Thursday, February 27th. We obviously don't have any FPL deadline this forthcoming weekend, and tomorrow me and Clayton will be doing the game week review podcast, hence doing Ask James. Today, I've got nothing particularly to announce. As per usual, I'm going to answer questions in order of submission up until 1:30 PM UK time, or unless I get through all the questions before that. So first up is Ian Everett. It says, hello mate, hope you're well. I still have wildcard, bench boost, free hit, not using it in game week 29 as have 11, and a triple captaincy. When would you be using triple captain if this was you? Thanks as always for the great content. Like and subscribe, people. That's a good question. You could have a double at the end that might land quite nicely. So ultimately, it's the least important one. I'll give you an example. So I remember in the, I think I want to say the 18-19 season. I might have that wrong, but that feels, yeah, I think that is right. It didn't quite work out as much as we'd planned in terms of the expected doubles towards the end. And a number of us ended up triple captain Salah or Mane against Huddersfield in, I think it was game week 35 or so, in a single game week fiction. Obviously, Liverpool were chasing down City for the title. And Liverpool won 5-0. And I think they both got a goal and assist or something. Like both of them scored really well. Might have even scored the same. I can't remember. And it worked out fine for a triple captaincy return. I think with what's left and the amount you've got, Ian, you may well be in a position where you are looking at the single game week options. Therefore, the one that is going to draw your eyes first and foremost is the next one. Mo against Southampton, game week 28. I probably wouldn't go that one, just on the little bit of the concern of obviously the Paris Saint-Germain games for Liverpool being the Wednesday before and the Tuesday afterwards. We know Mo is kind of nearly always playing 90 minutes, but under this sort of circumstance, is there a chance that he'd get taken off earlier? Yes. Under that circumstance, he already probably smashed in returns. Also, probably yes. But it doesn't feel like you'd be maximising it. What I mean by that is if you compare with, say, Haaland in game week 30, that at home to Leicester at the moment, you'd think use a stronger opportunity. Subject maybe to where their Manchester Derby fixture lands afterwards. Much stronger chance of getting, say, the 90 minutes. But it could be that the fixtures before and afterwards is quite important from that. For example, you could have a scenario where City have an FA Cup quarter-final on a Sunday, Leicester Wednesday, and then Manchester Derby maybe on the Saturday lunchtime or Saturday evening. Then that wouldn't appeal so much. Haaland goes to Southampton game week 36. That could really appeal. Again, there's a chance that City could have a midweek fixture before an FA Cup final. So to look that far ahead, that's challenging. For Mo, Leicester away game week 33 would likely be after a free midweek for Liverpool. So that would look promising. But again, you could have Champions League quarter-final first leg on the Tuesday afterwards, or even Liverpool play the Sunday against Leicester and then Wednesday. I guess the way that's landed, you've got more chance of maybe Leicester, Liverpool, maybe even being on a Friday night now. Possibly because Liverpool shouldn't play. Is that the right midweek? No, it's not that one, is it? The midweek afterwards, they'd be free. So you might have more chance, say, Leicester, Liverpool on the Monday night, is a better way to look at that. So that one maybe appeals. I think you probably are drawn to look at some of the single game week fixtures because for you, in your case, what are you doing for 32? Now, you don't have the assistant manager chip. So therefore, I would think for you still, you're probably looking at Isak 32 with a double. It's right there in front of you, isn't it? United at home, Palace at home. That feels right. I mentioned the single game week fixtures more for those with the assistant manager chip. You're probably then looking at the singles. I think for you, though, Ian, with what you've got, you're probably looking at something like wildcard 31, triple captaincy 32, bench boost 33, free hit 34. I would guess something like that, mate. We'll know more next week after these cup games. It is going to be important. I mean, the biggest game, I think, of the weekend for chip strategy, for those who are unsure at the moment, could well be Forest Ipswich Monday night. That's why we're not going to do the chip strategy podcast till Tuesday. Poke Master Marcello says, been looking forward to the Q&A vid all week, was planning to free hit 29. Now with Isak injury / rested for the cup final, I may not buy him for 28 and could not free hit and take a -4 to field a poor 11 instead. Yeah, as often, I've kind of been repeating this message over the last week now because I think it's getting more important. For those with 29 in mind and what you're doing and deliberating whether to free hit or not, I think the who is as important as the how many. Now, if you've got 3 really good ones, like you're free hitting, aren't you? If you've got 11, but it really does truly look terrible, still consider maybe doing it. If you've got 7 and 8, but you're going to cover like the majority of the key bases, then I would say like move on through. Don't stress about necessarily getting to the 11. So I think like for free hit 29, I think the attacking side of it will look pretty template for free hitters. So I think you'll probably have a front three would be Haaland, Cunha, Wood. It's probably difficult to disagree with. And then I think in the midfield, because if you just went with the one premium and you didn't go with Palmer against Arsenal, then you can fit in your Bumos, your Bowens, Bruno Fernandes, probably +1 Bournemouth attacker. Right, so that's probably the kind of template roughly. Some will still go Palmer. I understand that, and that's fine. That's roughly sort of the template you're looking at for a free hit 29. So, I mean, if you're covered off for kind of most of them bases, and that doesn't mean, I've not got Bowen, I need the free hit. No, not at all. But if you're covering most of that off, and a lot of you will have Boomer, a lot of you will have a Bournemouth attacker, a lot of you will have Chris Wood. If you're filling in a kind of the blanks of the other little bits there, you'd probably be fine. I wouldn't stress too much about the defensive ones, the way the season's going. I must force in 8 Norway away to Southampton. Like, yeah, sure, it looks cool, but how many clean sheets do they actually keep? Not that many. So I think the who is more important necessarily than how many. On Isak, look, I did stress before the game last night that I thought Eddie Howe would probably try something different. I've not watched a lot of the game, because obviously I was at Tottenham. But I can't say I was taken aback when I saw Isak wasn't in the team, the squad. He may legitimately have an injury. Ironically, we'd spoke earlier this week and said, look, he's largely avoided it this season. So probably tempted a little bit of fate, unfortunately. I think it's probably one where my best guess would be that if it had been the final itself last night, he would have played. But I don't have anything factual to base that up. So I think he did. I did hear that he did travel to the game. So it's probably not a serious issue. You'll find out on Sunday a little bit more about Isak. No one should be making early transfers for game week 28 with the information that we can learn over the weekend. I think there's a strong possibility he'll play against Brighton, and therefore whatever your strategy was with Isak shouldn't be impacted until we look at after the weekend. Oh shit, he's not played. He's a doubt for 28. Okay, fine. D.80 says, hi James, good week for you so far. Nice one. It's not gone too badly, yeah, so far. One more to go with Jared Bowen tonight. Says, you've been talking about Eddie Howe's possible mind games versus Liverpool. Do you think Isak is injured? Or was that Howe playing games? Just covered, so I'm going to skip over, but thank you for the question, mate. Prashan Hajani says, hi James, between Trent, Hall, Salah, Isak, who would you sell for 29? Have value in all. If Trent, who is the best replacement, and is he needed beyond 29? I don't think as it stands, nobody is needed beyond 29 because there is a very strong case. It's a difficult one, but there's a strong case to take Mo Salah on from that period. So I think ultimately you will be defined quite a lot by value. So I've spoken a few times saying that for me, it's probably Salah, Isak, Hall. But I may come to a conclusion that I wanted to take Salah on for the rest of the season. And I don't have to be defined by that. I can go back. But I may want to take him on and go down a route of, say, Haaland and Palmer between sort of game week 30 and 33. I think the team looks too tight with Haaland and Salah for what I want to do in terms of other teams and other players. I could take Haaland on still, but there's a temptation there, I think, on him for the end part of the season. So I wouldn't deem anybody as an absolute need. I think if you're moving Trent on in 29 and running through, I think Josko Vardiol is going to put his hand up. Played very defensively last night, didn't get that involved offensively, but I think last night specifically City had a tactic of a 4-2-4 off the ball to keep the two wide players really high and wide on the ball. Marmoush dropped a little bit shorter to join in with the midfield players. He's a very talented player, by the way. So I think there was something specific last night, and I must say, and I'll talk about it more tomorrow, I've been very critical of some of Pep's tactics over recent weeks. I think he got them spot on in the first half last night. He suffered a little bit second half once they fatigued a little bit more. I think Pep played a key role with what he picked last night. You got to pick, if you've got fast wingers, you got to pick them against my team basically, and that's what he did. So if you had someone on the left hand side who's more kind of used to coming in field or less of a kind of a 1v1 direct dribbler than say a Doku is, yeah, we may get that lean back to Vardiol being interesting at left back. I think that's the one that's going to appeal for you anyway, if you were to move on. Joe Pickles says, hi mate, thoughts on the game yesterday, so close to your trouncing prediction. Thought we probably deserved the win and feel a bit unlucky with the Haaland second goal. Would have gave up if Sarr scored. Yeah, City were deserving winners for me. As just said, I think Pep got his tactics spot on. In terms of, I don't quite know about predicting a trouncing. I fancied that Tottenham could do well, certainly. And I think you saw in the second half some of the reasons why. But City were really good in the first half. We were a little bit under it at the same time. Yeah, City deserved the victory. City should have been about 3 up at half time. Then by the end, I think it's probably you're saying, Joe, we very much could have equalised during the course of that second half. Maybe an even game, but certainly if there was a deserved winner, it was City throughout the course of the whole game. On the handball, I've only seen it back once, and I couldn't tell, so I'll have another look at it later again this evening. But I'm the opposite end of the ground, so I had no chance. And it was a good couple of seconds after he'd scored before I noticed the whistle had gone. On the one replay I saw back, it did look like the whistle was fairly early after the ball had obviously gone into the net, which is the right way for the referee to referee it. The amount of time it took was ridiculous. Ultimately, the on-field decision was handball, so therefore they've then got to prove that it wasn't. The one angle I saw, I was like, I can't tell. Couldn't say for sure, so I think they stick with the on-field. The unfortunate one with that is obviously because by law it doesn't even matter where it hits you. It's like just if it hits the, I don't know what they call it, below the armpit, if that's even a thing anymore, or yeah, below that armpit level, then they're going to cancel the goal, aren't they? So they had to definitively then prove that it's not hit him in that area, having given on-pitch disallowed. So yeah, if Sarr equalised, it would have been a real slap in the face. I got up when the goal went in for Haaland, was beginning to make my way out the ground. I went and was in a different seat for waiting for 3.5 minutes or so. It was so long. Yeah, don't get me started. But yeah, deserved victory for City overall. Rhino says, afternoon, James. You look forward to Leeds away next season? Well, I better say yes. Otherwise, your lot will kill me now if I don't. So yeah, looks like it, mate. It wouldn't be the first time we've been in February and Leeds looked certainties to go up and then didn't. But yeah, it's looking that way after them Sunderland and Sheffield United victories. So, yeah, see you next year, mate. You're very welcome, Prashan. No problem at all. Florentine P says, hi, James. Best defender up to 4.4 for game week 29 and 30 only. 29 and 30 only. Howson's above that now, isn't he? Nico Williams, is he still? I'm not sure if Nico Williams might jump to 4.5. That's one that stands out as a maybe. Aaron Wan-Bissaka is okay, but it's 2 away games. That doesn't truly inspire. I think you want to look at, you're kind of drawn to look at Wolves first and foremost, but Aït-Nouri's out of that. If Agbadou was back, I'd be tempted just to go down to him, but I don't think he's going to be. Hassan, if he's available. Williams, if he's available. If not, yeah, scraping the barrel, it possibly is sort of like Aaron Wan-Bissaka if you need for both. Doesn't fill with joy, sorry. Yeah, probably just scanning fixtures. Probably is something like that if it needs to be. Sorry, I can't remember all the prices of the players. Joe Pickles says, also, please give Kusanov a bit of love. Do you know what? I just think they're saying that. He's saying, give a bit of love tomorrow on the pod. Thought he was excellent yesterday, and media can't see him get past his first 10 minutes against Chelsea. No, he was great. I said on Monday's pod that I thought he was one of City's better players on Sunday and didn't wilt under some of the things that was going on in and around him when City were under kind of pressure moments. Yeah, really good. I think he does the basics really well. In that opening game against Chelsea, he looked small and weak. Straight away last night, I'm looking at him before he's even involved. He's a bigger lad than I thought he was. Yeah, I think he likes the art of defending, kind of a lost art in a lot of modern centre backs, and he's very composed on the ball. Faultless, to be honest, Joe. I couldn't pick anything out of him last night, and I thought, yeah, do you know what? They've got a good one there. So yeah, if I remember, I'll reiterate that tomorrow, and I should imagine I probably will, mate. EXLX is afternoon, James. Bruno Fernandes for 29. If so, for Palmer? Question. I think if free hitting in 29, you'll be very drawn to go for Bruno Fernandes. Like I said, if you just go with the kind of the one premium of Haaland, you can comfortably go Bruno, Bowen, Fernandes. I realise they're all away, but you probably will be tempted by them. And I think specifically for the free hit 29, Bruno Fernandes, particularly with this Garnacho situation, he was the one withdrawn after the red card to Patrick Dorgu again last night. So if Garnacho started against Sociedad on a Thursday, you'd be like, where do I stand? Maybe if Garnacho was benched against Sociedad, you'd like to punt that. But with Bruno on the pens, there's no real need to fight against him. I think you would want him on a free hit. Instead of Palmer on a free hit, probably yes. Would I buy Bruno Fernandes for Palmer if I was running through? No. No, I wouldn't. As a reminder, Palmer, it's Leicester at home next. I know people are a bit frustrated. I've seen a few people like rage transfer him out. I don't understand. Okay, whatever makes people happy. After the blank, Tottenham, Brentford, which is a good free fixtures for Cole Palmer. So I'd be keeping a free hit, maybe take him on away to Arsenal. But that in itself doesn't look as tough as it might have been. That said, Arsenal don't lose too much of their strength of what they are defensively, as those who watched the game, I think, would have seen last night. Dan Butler says, hi James, hope you're well. Two non-following questions. Who's your top three managers of the season so far? Also, what's your drink of choice down the pub? All the best. To be honest, a bit more of a cider man these days. So I had an Inches at Tottenham last night. That's nice. I don't go down the pub much anymore, mate. But it's normally a cider of some sort. So Inches, if it's available, I like. Aspel's okay. Top three managers this season. I think you have to put Slot in there because I think realistically, if we go back to pre-season, I don't think many of us thought Liverpool would win the league. So I think Slot has to be in there. I think he's exceeded expectation, done ever so well. Nuno has to be part of that. Outstanding season at Nottingham Forest. And then I guess the other one is probably Andoni Iraola, isn't it? I think. It was very harsh not to include Marco Silva as a part of that. But I think, yeah, Nuno and Iraola to go with Arne Slot, I think as it stands, if the season finished now, would be the three I'd go with. Next up is Prashan says, would you rather go Wood or Marmoush for 29? Wood. I know he'll play, mate. I think a lot of people would have penciled in Phil Foden for 29, and you've got things like last night. And I think in a weird way, because City are out the Champions League, you're going to have a period of City playing the 12:30 kickoff on the Saturday in 28, watching everybody else play before then making your decision on City players for 29. So do you need Marmoush to have a really good performance at Nottingham Forest to feel comfortable about it? I don't know if we learn anything from that. I would say on what I saw last night, he's going to be part of City's strongest 11. But I don't think I'd need to take that chance, really. Personally, I think the free hit front three, as I said, I think would be Haaland, Wood, Cunha. I think more the case with Marmoush is maybe more for those running through. Do you want to take on Haaland with him? Like, is Marmoush going to be worth the saving versus Haaland? Arguably, yes. In terms of that 8 million difference, I think he may on occasion be a captainable player for you, possibly. So there's that as the deliberation. I think where he'll appeal to you most likely is because of, say, Foden being benched last night and some of the other midfielders I've mentioned, you think, there's no City midfielder I particularly want. Oscar Bob, maybe, by the way, but it's too soon, isn't it, for 29, having had no involvement again last night. So I think you're drawn, I've got to have free City. I'm not sure I would, I think on free hit, for me, I'd probably just be going Vardy or Haaland. And I'd probably leave it there. Genuinely, probably would, rather than try and force in the third one. Wood talisman, you know what you get. Cunha talisman, you know what you get. And then I think one City attacker for the third forward in 29. That would be my take at the moment. Diljit07 says, good afternoon, James. Hope you're well and you have a good game week. What is your all-time favourite away day? We're going to do that, are we? It's Amsterdam, mate. It's fairly obviously. Do I need to go over this again? No, people are bored of this, surely. Prashan says, "Are Man City mids not a consideration for 29 and 30?" Well, yeah, it's awkward, isn't it? It's awkward. I probably would want Marmoush more than I'd want any of them City mids at the moment. Doku and Savinho, really good last night. I think I was critical of Doku on Monday. He said, like, you beat Trent how many times, but creativity, what? Well, in that first half last night, you beat Porro how many times, but his creativity and end product was there last night, much better. But Doku's not one you want for fantasy. Savinho, no. Could you punt these guys for, particularly on the free hit? Yeah, you could. You could. The majority of City's attacking players are fit, right? I think Marmoush feels like a better bet than the City mids for 29 specifically as it stands, and arguably even running through, perhaps even more so actually. Yeah, no, probably not for me. And when I'd really planned looking at running through 29 for myself, was kind of always at a thinking I'll end up with Foden 29. I kind of always penciled in if I continued to take Haaland on, I'd maybe even put the armband on him in 29. Don't think I'd be doing that. I'd prefer either Cunha or Wood for captaincy over any other City player that wasn't called Haaland in 29. Alex MJ87 says, "Hi James, would you sell Robinson for Munoz if running through 29? Just seems like the upside of the fixtures either side is better than one extra defender in 29. Cheers." Just weigh this up. And I'm not in a position to know if you're using Robinson in 28 or not, right? But does Munoz at home to Ipswich outscore Robinson of Brighton away and Tottenham at home? Factoring in that also the Tottenham game, anything he gets there is probably covering you rather than, it's not like you'd have zero off the bench or anything, right? Got a hole under that basis. I think it's probably not. No. Robinson's fixtures are rough from 30 onwards, so can you just make that move in 30? Robinson to Munoz in 30. You may have other things prioritised at that point. I get that, but probably a wait, I think. JP says, "Did you guys miss Spence yesterday?" I tell you what, I don't want to say yes, but he came on and played like a man possessed when he got on the pitch. He came on with a real kind of attitude and aura about him that knew he had half hour, I think it was 25 minutes by the time he actually got on the pitch. He originally was on the side of the pitch about minute 58, and it was about 6 or 7 minutes before they got on. And he came on like a man who knew he only had half hour to make a difference. And he was really good when he came on, Jed Spence. His difference with Destiny is... Destiny, one of the things that... I really like Destiny, Udogi. But one of the things I do dislike about him is his lack of variation in the final third. Many of you would have heard me say this before. He's never put a cross in his life. Now, he'll hit the byline and drag one back across if he kind of hits the byline within the penalty area. Unless he's within the kind of the inside the penalty area space, he's never going to put a cross in, ever. And it frustrates me. And the fact that, I'm not saying I want him to just sling a cross in, but the fact that he's never, ever done it. I've never seen him put a cross in from the byline, ever. Defenders know that. So they don't, when he kind of feints, they don't have to block for, well, he might cross it in and I want to block the cross. They know it's not getting crossed. So it makes him easier to defend against. I think Jed physically 1v1 is now of his own belief that he believes that he can deal with some of the best offensive wide players in this league. So I think, yes, it's now a privileged position, hopefully, JP, where we've got 3 good fullbacks who we can all use. I think it's easy to look at the physical attributes of Spence and Udogi and think, well, that's better for you defensively. But Porro, such a weapon in terms of delivery. You've even seen that yesterday with a chance for Odebear and the late chance for perhaps Sarr as well. Like, those other 2 players cannot put the ball into the box in the same way. So we do miss a level of creativity, I think, when Pedro Porro doesn't play. So it's nice to have the balance. It's good competition now. I didn't think we'd get to this point. I'll be very honest. I didn't think we'd get to this point. We'd be saying, I'm not sure. I'm not sure if he's in the best 11 or not. Keep rotating him. Absolutely fine. I'm happy with that now. Jed's a part of this squad. He's done really, really well. Proved me wrong. I'll be honest. He's proved me wrong. Stavros Papafoma says, "Good afternoon, James. Any strategy tips for the assistant manager? I'm considering Emery in 31. If table bonus home to Forest, and then Howe for the double-double. Any other suggestions on this chip? Thank you." You're very welcome, mate. 31 for bonuses. Yeah, I mean, that could stand out. There's every chance you're going to have that. Maybe Brentford at home to Chelsea might be another alternative. Glasner at home to Brighton might land in that week. And of course, with Glasner, you may have the scenario of Glasner bonus at home to Brighton and then double for Palace, which could feature several bonuses. There is a possibility that Glasner could have 5 bonus games in 3 weeks. It's unlikely, but it's a possibility. Particularly with Palace obviously blanking 29. It probably does need them, ironically, to slip up in one of the Ipswich Southampton games. Tottenham to do quite well in between, and Brighton also to do quite well, I should imagine. But that's a possibility. My kind of open strategy at this moment, my friend, would be I want to get to game week 31 and have 2 Palace, 2 Newcastle, not 3. So I can make a choice at that point to just go Howe or just go Glasner. There's an influence for me in because I'm free hitless, I need to be a little bit more careful about the transfers I use. So I would prefer for me to pick a manager that would just run the 3 game weeks for me. Under your circumstance where Emery against Forest, we've spoken about attacking Forest, and we've seen a few examples recently. Bournemouth, Newcastle and Fulham have all beat Nottingham Forest at home. Villa's home record outstanding. Emery there with a bonus could completely get the appeal. But if it was to land that Glasner had the bonus against Brighton, and then the potential double afterwards, then by default, I think you're going that route. You're taking the bonus there, or you're taking the route of 5 very good Newcastle fixtures. I'd say 5. It would be 4, wouldn't it, with Villa away in there? So, I mean, I'm of the mind at the moment to think, well, if Glasner had the double and the Brighton game was the bonus, I think I'd be going the Glasner route. So it's open at the moment. But yes, that's when I want to use it. FPL Borat says, hi James, where would you rank Salah among the all-time Premier League greatest players? I think we have to put him right up there now. It's very difficult. I think psychologically many of us are drawn to the first legends we see. So like I would put someone like Kevin De Bruyne in a Premier League 11 now, but I think most people would still think about players from the 90s and noughties, and I think it's normal to have that feeling, particularly when you've got a player still playing. So with Salah now, I mean, are we talking about him being the best right winger in Premier League history? I think probably yes now. Yeah. If I have to shove Ronaldo to the left, that's what I'll do. So I think, yeah, Salah has to be considered one of the absolute greatest now. I mean, the numbers are off the scale ridiculous, aren't they? JP says, best differential buys whilst not free hit in 29 and having wildcard and bench boost in the pocket. So you're not going to be looking too far ahead. Are you looking fairly short term? So I think defensively, something like Aït-Nouri, maybe the likes of Gibbs White, Elanga, Forest to have a look at for sort of the next few. Maybe City at home doesn't make that appeal so much, but then I think Ipswich and Manchester United 29-30 is quite good. Chelsea players, but surely you kind of already made that choice. I probably wouldn't chase after it again now. In fairness, someone like Cucurella might do you a job. Yes, you're not expecting anything 29, but the home fixtures 28 and 30 are good. So I think Wolves, Bournemouth, Forest, Marmoush is a fair shout. So come back to that one as another one. I guess Vardiol is not in many teams at the moment. Would also be one potentially. Jerry W says, hello Jimbo, with the state of Tottenham and United right now, would you rather have a club that is secure financially but underwhelming on the pitch, or vice versa? It kind of needs to find it, like, how insecure is insecure, like, you know, worrying about the potential future of the football club. Like, no, just be shit. But like, to be in a position, say, where, I mean, United are in a position of both at the moment. United aren't in, like, concern for their future, but they are going to be restricted, we think, by PSR, right? Unless they do something kind of drastic in June and July to sell homegrown and then kind of reinvest what they want to do with the squad to get. And they might do that, right? Sell Mainu and Garnacho and move Rashford on and then kind of re-energize the squad that way. They can do that. Where would I rather be? Not sure I want to be labelled with them at the moment, though, because my team can really act in the summer. And I think, unlike United have had injuries, but I think mine's been off the charts. And I look at things like last night, and I think if we had Dom Solanke, we may well have got something last night, actually. Would I rather have a club that is secure financially but underwhelming on the pitch, or vice versa? I suppose ultimately what every fan truly wants is success on the pitch, isn't it? But I wouldn't, if you said, and this isn't meant disrespectfully to any of the other clubs. I'm going to mention a couple. So Portsmouth and Wigan, I'll mention, right? So those two clubs, Portsmouth obviously went through horrendous financial difficulties. But you would never want to strip away from Portsmouth the FA Cup win in 2008. Wigan have also had problems. You'd never take away from Wigan fans winning the FA Cup in 2013 either. But from my perspective, having seen successes, yes, I have, in other competitions and played in Champions League, etc., etc., I wouldn't want one FA Cup win and then go, right, I'm going to have 10 years outside the Premier League and stuff, right? So it is also a little bit influenced by who you support. So, but ultimately, we all want success on the pitch, don't we? Bottom line. But not at the risk of secure financial future. JP says, when do you reckon is the right time to sell Palmer? If so, what are your moves going forward with the extra money? There's two routes for me here. And I haven't made a decision on this. One is to cut him in 29. But I do look at them fixtures 30 to 34 and think they're great. The big one I keep coming back to for someone like me who doesn't have the free hit, I keep thinking I probably need him in 34. So actually it's 35 for me, probably. Liverpool, Newcastle, Man United, Forest are Chelsea's last four, and they're probably going to be in Conference League semi-finals. It's probably then. Otherwise, there's every chance it's going to stay for me, I think. So, look, we can overreact to outcomes quite a lot. I spoke on the deadline stream on Tuesday about people had been saying recently about selling him, and then suddenly it's like, oh, it's Southampton here, I want to captain him. Well, that fixture's always been there. And as per yesterday's Clayton and James show, like Palmer, truthfully, now that it's all done, Palmer was the right captaincy choice. It was, if you're defined by the outcome, sorry, Palmer was really the right choice based on what we saw with our eyes in terms of the two games and the data. So would we be asking that question if Cole Palmer had tucked that away past Ramsdale, finished Tuesday night with a 14, 15 pointer or so? Would we be asking that question? Nah, we'd just be sitting there going, Leicester at home's okay. And you definitely really shouldn't be selling him for Leicester at home. If people want to move on in 29 because they've got the luxury of transfers and want to, he's going to be a make weight to get Haaland, for example, get it completely. Otherwise, it's probably a hold. It's not like we've got Saka competing, right? So unless you're throwing that money around to sort of like bring Haaland in, it's a keep, isn't it? Dermot Whelan says, hi James, hope all is good. Start Raya versus Manchester United or Verbruggen versus Fulham at home. Thanks. Oh, Raya all day long. Yeah, Fulham a good side. Be put off by Arsenal going to United. Just kept a clean sheet at Forest. Forest are a better side than United at the moment. Dermot Whelan I've covered. Jerry W. So I remembered someone asking you who the overrated Premier League manager was. Who do you think is the most underrated from the 2000s? Most underrated Premier League manager from the 2000s. Wow. Crap. Sorry, I'm trying to scan a lot of teams in my mind. Drawn to think of Benitez, maybe might be one people overlook because he didn't win a Premier League title, but he obviously had success in cup competitions with Liverpool. Would maybe be one. Kind of really was a top four then. Ferguson, Wenger, Mourinho primarily, and then Benitez. Would you say Martin Jol because he kind of made Tottenham the fifth team towards the mid to kind of 3/4 mark of the noughties? Would you say that? I guess he was the start of change for Tottenham, so I would put him in consideration there. But maybe you could say someone like Harry Redknapp, who then came in after one day Ramos at Tottenham, had won the FA Cup with Portsmouth, as mentioned earlier, in 2008, had got West Ham into Europe, although I think that might have been 99. So maybe Harry Redknapp, another good shout. You've got the likes of David Moyes and the brilliant job he did at Everton. Sam Allardyce, fantastic job at Bolton for the majority of that period. There's a few names for you, mate. Joe Pickle says, having a debate with my mate, not in FPL but in real life, who was the better player in their prime, KDB or Salah? I don't think that's a straightforward answer, and there'll be someone screaming now going, yes it is. Depends what you want out of a footballer, right? I think a little bit. So these two players are really difficult to compare because if you just put data in front of you, you're going to say Salah all the time, aren't you? But Kevin De Bruyne, I remember being at that Champions League quarterfinal in 2019, second leg. And even though he was doing us over, me and my dad talking about him for a couple of minutes during that game, just being in absolute awe of how good he was of running a football match. We're not talking about, the big goals, the big moments, I get that. Literal running the football match. Mo Salah can't run a football match from the centre of the pitch, right? So players like this are very difficult to compare. So it often might come down to what you prefer, right? So maybe for me, influence of kind of, the first midfielder I saw at Tottenham was Paul Gascoigne, right? So I probably had more of an influence to players like that than later your Modric's and your Dembele's. More players like that rather than your Gareth Bales. So Gareth Bale at Tottenham couldn't run a football match, but he could absolutely win it on his own. And I saw him do that plenty of times, right? So is that comparable? Salah's also playing in an absolutely outstanding team. De Bruyne has also played in an outstanding team. So probably, to be honest, it comes down to what do you define and what do you value most. I don't think that's a straightforward answer. Most people, I think, would just go for the goals and the assists, and on that base, you couldn't argue with Mo. Kevin De Bruyne, I think, someone asked earlier about underrated footballers. Kevin De Bruyne is one of the best midfield players this league has ever seen. I find that very difficult to compare the two. I could only say to you, Joe, that if I was picking an all-time Premier League 11, they'd both be in it. Marv FPL says, hi, James. I don't need to play Dango in 28 or 30, but I need to start him in 29. Currently playing to wildcard 31. Would you sell him for a -4? Thanks, mate. The problem is, I don't think that the midfield options for 29 are that wonderful. And I think that's why a lot of people who free hit will most likely, not necessarily, but most likely default to Bumo, Bowen, Fernandes, even though they've all got away games. Fernandes is obviously a very good one. Just because I think the options aren't that great. So you're saying -4, but you haven't said to who. And it's probably because the options aren't great, right? So you want specifically what for 29? So who's the best one? Can you get up to a Bowen? Is that even worth, or a Boomer? Is that even worth a -4 just on 29 itself? Probably not. It's probably a hold, mate, at the moment. At least evaluate through the cup games at the weekend, 28 weekend, and then make that decision for 29. You're saying you don't need him to play in 28, so there's no need to be making that decision now. JP says, hold Vissa or sell to Wood for 29. Guess there's a little bit of dependence on after, because you might want to move, say, to Mateta in 30. And if that's the case, then Wood literally becomes the value of the transfer, one into buy and then maybe one into sell. And if that's the case, you maybe just hold and then go Mateta 30. FPL Uproar says, hi, James. How many points do you want from Bowen tonight? I hope he smashes it. Gold, though. Not that greedy. The hit's already paid off from Nkunku and what the other players have done. So I don't need him to do anything. Would it be great for my FPL team if he absolutely smashed it tonight? Yes, he's someone who served me quite well when I've owned him in the past. I did have him for that hat-trick against Brentford last year. Another end of game week game. We seem to have had a spate of these over the last 18 months with big hauls in the final game of a game week. So yeah, I'd be happy if he returned tonight, to be honest. Anything on top of that, great. Joe Pickles says, if Spurs get to the Europa final, I assume you would go. And if you did, how long would you be making it? 2-3 nights? There's a divide here in what I'd want, Joe, in sense of my son, right? So I can tell you most likely that if I didn't have my boy, I would almost definitely be going on the Monday and coming back either on the Thursday, but maybe even possibly the Friday. Just going a week. I don't really want to be away for that amount of time. So, but I think, yeah, that's not an on-the-day job, I can tell you that. It'll be Monday or Tuesday, then it'll probably be back to Thursday. Yeah, probably Tuesday to Thursday under that circumstance. Would I go, mate? Finally. Only if I'm not... Anyway, I'm not going if I'm dead, mate. Basically. It's already been looked at, mate. I've even looked at going by boat via Portsmouth, mate. It's all been looked at. And no, I don't intend to do that. It takes too long. FPL Harry says, if the FA Cup semi-finals are City, Villa, Bournemouth and Manchester United, would this be the most boring season of doubles we've ever had? Oh, Harry, I don't retain the information of previous seasons in quite the same way, but I feel like there was a big expectation on the end of the season a couple of years ago, and we only had, Brighton City and United Newcastle, and they kind of almost became almost like dead rubber matches and stuff. Certainly Manchester City's was. So no, I think there's definitely variation in terms of the strategy at the moment. I don't see a clear, you might see more, Harry, but I don't see a clear, definitive, people are definitely free hitting 29 or not free hitting 29 or definitely free hitting 34 or not. I feel like the growth of asking about wildcarding in 34 has been on the increase. I think the Arseman leads to limitations around what can be done around 33. So you're going to get a number on Arseman 33, bench boost 33. There will be some who still want to attack 33 from a free hit perspective even. So, no, I wouldn't say so necessarily, Harry. I think there was always a chance this year that because the quarterfinals of the FA Cup not causing blanks, we're always going to have less doubles. So this layout that we have now, we're going to have the same next season, and our learnings will be better from this season for next season. So I know many had highlighted the prospect of Fulham Tottenham being brought forward to 25, but none of us thought that Villa, Liverpool or Arsenal, Chelsea would. So when we go into next season now, Harry, we now know the likelihood of this is going to be much greater. Maybe subject to when the Carabao Cup final date is, which I haven't looked at. I'm not even sure if it's been confirmed as yet. But the layout is going to be very similar, I think, for next season. Jürgen says, hello, James. I need a midfielder for 3 game weeks. Any suggestions? Below 6.8, please. 3 game weeks, eh? Below 6.8. I'm going to throw Morgan Gibbs White name in now for across all 3. I don't think that's bad at all. I think it'll tick over. I probably would still prefer a Bournemouth one. Clive or Semenya probably would not buy Otara at this moment. Wolves doesn't have any interest. City, no. Chelsea, you've already made the decision. Bowen's more expensive than that. Decore would be rogue, but they go to Liverpool 30. I know he didn't play last night because his missus was giving birth. Congratulations to the Decores. As long as that baby's okay, touch wood. So, yeah, I shout Morgan Gibbs White, mate. Jerry Darmy says, I saw a tweet saying if Villa don't qualify for the UCL, they're financially fucked. If so, how true is it considering you covered financial issues faced by United prior hand? Villa will have a big boost in the next financial year because remember all the Champions League money revenue is obviously going to come onto the next accounts, which will manage a problem they have. Basically, Villa are running into an excessively high wage proportion to turnover. It's really high. But that will be covered off a lot better in the next year because of the Champions League money. If they don't have Champions League money or at least some form of European football next season, then yes, something needs to happen. I do think there is a strong possibility. You must remember Villa just sold John Duran, right, for big money and stuff. I do think there's a possibility that there might be more. So I could foresee, for example, someone like Jacob Ramsey, who I think is a very talented player, going for some really good money in the summer, to suggest that they're fucked when a sale like that would probably be all right for them. I don't think that's the case. So fucked, no. Do they need to remanage the proportion of what they're spending on salaries? Yes. If they don't continue to get European football, they will. But I don't have excessive concerns for them. I think they'll look better for this summer for having just had the Champions League involvement. Whereas for United, the money from the Europa League's just not the same. And obviously, unless they win Europa League, you really are looking at the next year going, there's no European football. So you can't even project certain amounts of money. It's just not going to be there. Steamroller says, hello, legend. When to bring City players and who? I kind of covered City players, so I'm going to skip that. But thank you, mate. Prashan says, best FPL content, hands down. Smash the like and sub, people. Thank you, mate. Yeah, smash the sub. Hit the like button. It all counts. It's free stuff. If you've listened to the audio, 5-star review does go a very long way. And I've now lost my place in the questions. Will AFC says, hi, James. Given Evan Nilsson's appearance off the bench, do you think Utara now becomes a sell? Thanks. No, it depends on your strategy a little bit, right? So I think if you are free hitting 29, I think you might be drawn to look at something like Eze, for example, in game at 28. If you're running through it, I'd just run through. and assess that on the other side. This was always the danger with him, unfortunately. But you need some money in the bank to remove it, and also factor in, if you are using the Arseman 31 or 33, you might need some money for that as well. Priority would be sit for the minute. He could, of course, just move into a wide position, but that obviously also doesn't make him as attractive as through the middle. Craig Muir says, start Dango or Semenyo or sell one, and if so, for who? Running through 29, currently have 11 starters for that week. 3 free transfers, thanks. Kind of similar, Craig, as just covered, but at the moment it would be play Semenyo of the two. As it stands, we may gain more information in the Cup over the weekend. Tom Reynolds says, sell Trent to Vardiol's. He's likely going to be rested. Southampton for the PSG games and then blanks. No, let's see how we sit this time next week once that first leg against PSG's gone. I kind of find it more likely at the moment that he would probably be managed through the Southampton game rather than definitively not play. I'll give you an example. I think we can overthink this. Remember, Liverpool don't play this weekend, so we've got a big gap now from Wednesday through to next week, right? And obviously played a Wednesday. It's a 7-day gap, right? So cool, recovery, proper recovery. They've had a kind of intense period and then go again. Most of us have thought on Andy Robertson that he couldn't play three games in a week anymore. And we just saw him just do that. I know he didn't start last night, but previously, I think the City game come round, it was like, I'm not sure he's going to play again. The Villa game come round, it was like, I'm not sure he's going to play again. And he kept playing him when he was managed properly. I think in the circumstance of Bradley not being available, I think more likely for the Southampton game is that he would start, and when the game's won, he'll come off. A little bit like at Villa, he was managed at Villa. So I think if Liverpool had a game this weekend, he'd be way more likely not to start the Premier League game. But as it stands at the moment, I think he would probably start against Southampton. Are any of us sitting here thinking Salah doesn't start against Southampton for the same reasons? No. So I think as it stands, Trent would start against Southampton, have his minutes managed. You might even find his minutes are managed a little bit in the first leg away to PSG, where Bradley Barcola might be skinning him up, and it might be like, fuck, we need to put something else out there. It's also a possibility. So I think the judgment on that comes this time next week. Next up is Danny. Says, hi James, how many left feet does Suj have? 2, I think, mate. Frugal Frostbite says, do you still tip Arsenal to win the league? No. No, obviously not. And I'm pleased that it looks like I'm going to be wrong, right? I'm more than happy to be told, haha, you were wrong. I get plenty wrong, trust me. All I would say is, I kind of, in terms of the running, I do think, weirdly enough, the Southampton game would probably clinch it for Liverpool. I kind of explain why. So the difference is 13 points, but Arsenal have a game in hand. Let's work on the assumption they win it, and it's 10 points, right? So it's 10 points difference in with 11 games to play. So the way I always look at it and think it would be 10 games to play for Liverpool. The way I always think is, if the points difference is bigger than the amount of games left to play, and it's a title race, not so much at the bottom of the table, but for a title race, yeah, it's over. So as it stands, Liverpool would go into the Southampton game with 10 games to go and be 10 points clear. Right afterwards, if it's 10 points clear with 9 games to go, we're done. So Liverpool just need to beat Southampton, in my opinion. Sounds weird, doesn't it? The thing is, you can't see Arsenal making up the ground. They've dropped, 2 points per game now. That would have, if they maintain that, they finish 76. They possibly will do better than that. I don't think the confidence is really there from Arsenal fans at the moment. I understand why with the injuries. So for Liverpool to top that, would they need 10 points or something? Yeah, I mean, it's so nearly done. I couldn't be sitting here now saying I don't think Liverpool win the league. Of course I do. Treble says, Kusanov is getting a great reputation amongst City fans despite what the pundits say. What did you think of him in the flesh? Covered near the start of the stream, Treble. Yeah, really impressed, actually. I think, as was raised earlier on the stream, I think people had a little bit of a kind of a negative subjective bias based on what they saw at the start of the Chelsea game. And I had that in me at the start. I was like, oh my God, this is really bad. But he's been fine. I thought he was good on Sunday. I thought he was one of City's better players against Liverpool. And he was good last night. Really good. And nothing to add to what I'd said earlier in the stream. Arvin Good Epu says, what's the best time for wildcard if you're on free hit 29? I think, let me clarify one thing that I've said about wildcard game week 30. I don't mind wildcard 30. There's 2 things I don't like about it. One, I think most people will naturally fall okay for game week 30, so it can wait an additional week. Okay. When I look at the teams playing in 29 who have fixtures afterwards, right? So Wolves against Southampton, then West Ham. Bournemouth at home to Brentford, then Ipswich. Forest away to Ipswich, then Manchester United. City, Brighton at home, then Leicester at home. Chelsea, if you own, is then good afterwards. Tottenham at home. If you free hitted 29, it's presumably because you've got Palace, Liverpool, Newcastle at it. They've all got a good fixture in game week 30. West Ham is okay for the 2 weeks. Everton and Wolves. Arsenal's okay. It's 2 home games. Like, I feel like it's difficult to go, whatever you do for 29, I feel like it's difficult to land badly for 30. That's one thing I don't like about it. The specific thing I really dislike about game week 30 is what I said about the lack of information in terms of where the doubles might land. But it's only really a specific one for bench boosters. That's the one that scares me. Where people see the projection, they go, yeah, Newcastle going to double in 33. And because of double 32, I've got to have treble, right? And it's like you're setting up for a bench boost. It's like, okay, yeah, great. And then the Newcastle Ipswich fixture doesn't get brought forward to 33 and you don't know at the point your wild card. Then suddenly you're sitting there with like Gordon Hall bench boosting when they're away to Villa and going, like that's my fear. Not just the Newcastle example, there's other examples. That people set for a bench boost in 33 based on projections and then the projections are wrong. That's what scares me. And we have to acknowledge that a few times this season, the unexpected has happened. See anybody going, Newcastle Palace is going into 32 now. No. And it's that makes us assume that Newcastle Ipswich would come forward to game 33. But does it? It doesn't have to. I spoke on the last Chip Strategy podcast saying that arguably game week 34, staying in it or moving to game week 35 would maybe make more sense. Maybe even more sense than moving the fixture back to the free open midweek for everybody of game week 36. Because then they may have to play before an FA Cup final a few days before. Almost definitely on the Wednesday, by the way. So that's what really scares me about is those wildcarding in 30 doing it to bench boost in 33. Now, if those are wildcarding in 30 to bench boost in 33, they can't be playing the arsemanship. So there isn't a reason to rush that. Please do it in 31. That's what I'd say, right? Others who need to play the Arseman 31 to 33 and are then going to wildcard in 30, I get that a little bit more. You're like, hang on, I want to play Arseman 31 to 33, so I feel like I'm being forced into this. But could you also go 32 to 34? Maybe not if you're free hitting in 34. I get it. Fitting all the chips in is difficult. I just want people to have a little bit more awareness. So to answer your question, when's the best time to wildcard if you're on free at 29? I ain't got a clue, Arvind. And I don't mean horribly. I don't know what team you've got, mate. So how well do you carry through in 28? How well do you land in 30? What's your chip usage between 31 and 34? Do you need to use it at the end? Do you not have these chips? I don't think there's a black and white, I know you've got a template team, this is the week to wildcard. What I would say is consider wildcarding in 29. I do want people to look at the possibility of bench boosting in game week 30. I'm not suggesting anyone does it. Just please look at it. Aidan says, is free hit 38 a viable option if 33, 34 can be navigated with the wildcard? Final day of the season could be chaos with team leaks and high scoring games. It could be, and there's a few that you might want to attack who have bad fixtures beforehand. So I'll give you some examples of that. So I would say Arsenal, Newcastle, Bournemouth. All don't look great 35 to 37, but they play Southampton away, Everton at home and Leicester at home respectively in 38. So that can work. That alone can make it work. West Ham at Ipswich is fine. Wolves, Brentford playing each other, attacking players from those two teams. It's absolutely fine. So yes, it can work. It can. There's a case for it, but it might not land great. I think primarily those are the teams you'd be attacking: Arsenal, Newcastle, Bournemouth. Now you might have good coverage of those teams now. That then means probably a longer path, probably around about 34, selling them all, and then you can use them all again maybe in 38. So yeah, I don't mind it. I'd look at that strategically in terms of like those teams and those fixtures though, very importantly, rather than relying on the chaos at the end, because it might not land that way. Game week 38 could just be a complete and utter dead rubber, right? Absolutely could be. Title is probably going to be done. Relegation probably be done. If Champions League places is done, we're at dead rubber, isn't it? What are we even doing with game week 38? Well, I'm going to White Hart Lane as per usual. Right, it's 1:30, so I'll tell you, I'm going to cover off two more. Bradder says, do you think it's easier for away teams to implement style play out from the back without home fans getting frustrated with style? Less pressure on players, easier to implement better outcomes. Maybe, but I can tell you, like, the amount of away ends I'm in, and I think, yeah, away fans still get frustrated, but it's not the kind of the whole crowd. It can feel like sometimes when teams are playing at home, brings a nervousness, because inevitably in a home ground you've got people who don't go to football much, but almost all grounds, and kick it long, get it out, and it's just like archaic when no one plays that way anymore. There's a time to clear your lines, don't get me wrong, but I just want to sink when I hear those sort of comments around me sometimes. But yeah, there's something in that potentially, brothers, in terms of the kind of not feeling that anxiety on your back. Yeah, and as alluded to on the Clayton and James show yesterday, yeah, you know, every team wants to play out in the back, so yeah, maybe it is easy to implement away from home. I would say to counter that a little bit though, obviously if the home team then presses very well, and I see this happen a lot against Tottenham, then that obviously lifts the crowd and can work kind of anti against you. So I do think it's a narrative you can spin either way. Matthew North's going to have the last one. Says, who do you think is the best 6.2 mids are? Can't decide between Savio and Elanga. I already have Semenyo. Cheers, mate. If I had to buy one of those two now, I'd buy Elanga. I'm more likely to know what I'm getting in terms of my minutes. So, but again, to reiterate what I said right near the start, anybody should be making a transfer between now and sort of next Wednesday or so. Honestly, if you're seeing price movements, please let them go. The information over this weekend is going to be way more important. And to reiterate, we will do chip strategy again next Tuesday. Game review podcast, myself and Clayton will be doing tomorrow, and we'll obviously discuss options from all the teams in a bit more detail. What do I need to say to end this? Not a lot, other than for those who have not got through to your questions, apologies. If you do want to tag me on Twitter or on Blue Sky at Planet FPL Pod, I'm happy to answer your question at some point during the course of today. If you want to support the show, it's www.patreon.com/Planet FPL. We've released a podcast on profit and sustainability rules staying in place for next season on our Money in Football podcast this morning. And Suj is the guest on Nico's Corner this week. Both of those podcasts are available from Intermediate Plus tier and above. But just leaves me to say thanks very much, everyone. Smash a like, hit the sub button, and for the benefit of those on the audio, cue music, please, man child.